In today's Meta Monday episode, I'm adventuring into a different variant of D-Reaper. Red Reaper was a widely successful build in previous formats due to its capability to utilize a delicate plan in conjunction with Reaper. In addition, Crimson Blaze and Gaia Force were also utilized as security bombs. But in the current format of BT9, security bombs have never been more imperative than ever. But in the case of this deck, the bomb could be just a dead card in your hand. After some playtesting, this deck has shown some success with Metal Garurumon X and Alphamon. But in all honesty, this deck requires you to play differently depending on your matchup. And if you enjoy these types of videos, do consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell for more future content. As always, I'll go over the card by card, the strengths, the weaknesses, and the combos. This deck runs 2 level 7s, 6 option cards, 4 Tamers, and a lot of no-level Digimon. I'll cover all the no-level Digimon first. Like any D-Reaper deck, you are going to be running 4 copies of Mother D-Reaper. This card is unaffected by all of your opponent's card effects, meaning if they try anything, this card is unaffected. Source stripping? No. Bounce? No. Delete? No. The only thing that works on this card in particular is having attacking effects that let you attack unsuspended Digimon. This card is highly susceptible to Black War Greymon and Gaiamon decks, mainly for the fact that they need 4000 DP of buffs and Black War Greymon to clear Mother off the board, or 3000 DP with Gaiamon. And do keep in mind, this card is affected by your card effects. Meaning if you board wipe with, X program, Mother goes too. Mother also has a wide variety of effects that you'll need to be considerate of. First, once per turn you can suck a searcher under this Digimon as an evolution source. This searcher can be straight from the hand or an existing one on the field. And second, for each source under this Digimon, you can reduce the play cost of one of your D-Reaper cards once per turn. X-Antibody makes for some shenanigans for the fact that you can use this as another Digivolution source to make your D-Reaper Digimon cheaper. The only counterplay at this time in the format is Psychmon. This Digimon will prevent your on-play reduction effects, including the searchers, but you can suck directly from your hand if need be. Speaking of searchers, this deck runs 19 total. For a typical D-Reaper deck, you'll find decks run anywhere from 18 to 20 on the high end. My variant from the last format went on a smidge on the high roll end and ran 18. But I'll tell you, opening hands with no searchers is wild. Searchers can't attack players, but do keep in mind that they can attack other Digimon. Although they have a 1000 DP threshold, their inheritable does give a buff of 1000 on their turn for each one that's either Mother or even Reaper. Do consider attacking with them first into suspended Digimon if you can clear them first before pulling them under Mother. Otherwise, on play, draw a card. This is one of the few cards in the deck that is in essence your Digivolution. And while you have no other searchers, the play cost is 1 memory. There aren't any substitutions for this Digimon, mainly because D-Reaper decks put your opponent on a time clock immediately. Not to mention, 2 of these can choke your opponent to 2 memory if they gave you 1 memory. The next no-level Digimon is Pendulum Feet. This card lets you search the top 3 cards for 1 searcher and 1 D-Reaper Digimon. Meaning you could add 2 searchers off the search, or 1 searcher in any other D-Reaper related card, whether it's Bubbles, Pendulum Feet, Pilates Head, Jerry, Gatekeeper, or Reaper. My recommendation is to always add Bubbles and searchers, because you'll likely dig deeper into your pieces that you need. But if you're ready with 7 searchers and are missing Reaper, add that bad boy immediately. Remember, Mother can potentially reduce the play cost of this Digimon to 0 if you have 3 sources under her, meaning you could play 2 Bubbles to pass back if you had them. Bubbles has an amazing security effect or an on-play effect that lets you pull another searcher on your field or in your hand under Mother. It's run as a 4-of to potentially accelerate your Reaper play, and again you can reduce this play cost to 0 if you have 3 Digivolution sources under Mother. Now interestingly enough, this deck only runs Jerry at 2 copies. Jerry costs a whopping 5 memory, but this can be reduced to 1 if you have 4 Digivolution sources under Mother, or even for free if you have more than 5. Unfortunately, there aren't any D-Reaper effects that give you DP buffs on your opponent's turn. because Jerry likely only sticks around for one turn after playing a source under Mother before it gets deleted. That's right, when she's played, if the memory is still in your turn, you can suspend Jerry in order to reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. Then place a searcher underneath Mother. Suspension the same turn it's played is not something that is not allowed in the Digimon trading card game. You could bump this to 3, but I'm currently only running 2 copies, for my reasons. Also at 2 copies is Pallades' Head. This card lets you suspend it to delete a Digimon with DP less than or equal to this Digimon. This is more for late game removal, or popping Digimon like Psychmon that prevent play cost reduction. But this Digimon can get huge. One test game got this boy up to 13,000 DP. I couldn't find Reaper, but I could keep popping the board. Gatekeeper is a mandatory 4-of to slow your opponent down. When this card is checked in security, it doesn't do battle, much like Omnimon's or Defeat, and plays itself. In addition, if you have Mother on the battlefield, this card recovers you 1 security. And if Mother has 6 or more Digivolution sources, your opponent's Digimon get -1 security. This card is one of or the worst cards to hit in security, considering 2 in succession while Mother is out nets them 2 new security, and even worse, a potential security attack -2 on all Digimon on the field. Removal of Gatekeeper is difficult due to the fact that it does not have a level, as a majority of removal in other colors seems to be level dependent. The last non-level card for the deck is Reaper. Reaper is a 20 on-play cost with 15,000 DP. When attacking, this Digimon can unsuspend itself by putting 2 searchers underneath it. You can make the play cost for this card 0 by sending 7 searchers underneath Mother to the trash. In combination with a delicate plan, this is your endgame finisher of what you're trying to build towards. But with this deck, you have a few ways to take games. But moving to our actual Digimon, option cards, and Tamers, this deck runs 2 Death X-Mon for the wide board removal if your opponent goes wide, allowing you to pop this boy down for 3 less memory for each Digimon and Tamer on their field, and then control the board with its end of turn pop effect on your opponent's turn. But do keep in mind, your opponent could simply just use a sacrificial body every turn to avoid this. For option cards, this deck runs 6 in the form of 1 A Delicate Plan, 2 Fireball, and 3 X-Antibody. A Delicate Plan is purely for the control matchup to close out games with your Reaper. In a typical scenario, your chip damage can be 2 to 3, and by the time you get Reaper out, you'll have more than enough swings to end the game. Fireball was chosen for its cheap play cost and removal primarily of memory blockers or memory reducing blockers in the case of Psychmon. Although Fireball was chosen, you can run other alternative red option cards like Gaia Force, Atomic Blaster, Atomic Megalo Blaster, or even Happy Bullet Showering. I've playtested this build with Gaia Force and Happy Bullet Showering, and there are times where you'll draw into them and it doesn't feel great to play. And of course, X-Antibody for slipping extra sources under your Mother if you need to. It also acts as a pseudo-security bomb for 1 memory, and you can add it to your hand. But the funnest part of this deck is Starter Deck 1, Tai Kamiya. This Tamer gives your Digimon a plus 1000 DP buff and a red source to boot. In general, you're utilizing this Tamer for buffing your Digimon enough so that they can swing and go into security to potentially live. With multiple bubbles or pendulum feet, you can have multiple bodies chipping away or just beating over other Digimon. The best part is this Tamer also works well with Pallades' Head, providing extra buffs to pop even 12 or 14,000 DP Digimon. For strengths and weaknesses, this deck's biggest strength is actually going first. Statistically, you should be able to draw a Searcher and pass your opponent 1 memory on turn 1. The key part of this deck is to try to choke your memory to 1 or 2. With so many people playing memory boost, they'll need to spend time digging, which gives you a 3 to 4 turn clock to set up what you need, especially if you're going to go a long game and put gatekeepers about to deter security checks. To further add chokeability with memory, this is why Fireball was ultimately chosen as the red option card, for memory blockers or potential card draw. Your best matchups are all around decks that don't build wide, but don't forget, you have Death X-Mon for those matchups as well. Purple and blue matchups feel free, primarily because there's no removal that helps them against you since none of your Digimon have levels. Weakness-wise, this deck can equally get rushed by certain decks. D-Brigade can be a deck that can chip multiple times in your security, considering statistically your security will be 1000 DP searchers, which means you have to spend your turn taking them out. But again, this is where Gatekeeper can really slow the game down against these matchups. As for combos, I'm only going to go over a conventional turn 1. Raise of Mother, Searcher, and Draw. Make sure you draw your card off this effect. Sequencing can be crucial for these decks for the fact that you could play multiple Searchers in one turn. Suck the one you just played underneath your Mother, especially if this is later turns, but if it's you going first, then choke your opponent instantly to 1 memory. But overall, this deck plays itself and minimizes your play costs at every possible turn. While you can add cards like Gaia Force and Happy Bullet Showering, these cards can give potentially more memory to your opponent when you want to focus with this particular variant being aggro, not control. What are your thoughts on Red Reaper as a deck? Or do you prefer the yellow variant that's floating around? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is DIGI-PANDA, logging out.